Hey everyone, it's Alec Crawford. Our special guest today is Matt Middleton, founder and CEO of Futureproof, an amazing, hesitate to call it a conference, but more like a get together for financial advisors. So we talk a little bit about the event, the origin of the event, and also how important it is for advisors to use AI, and also how do you do that safely? Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's Alec Crawford, your host for the AI Risk Reward podcast. And our very, very special guest today is Matt Middleton, founder and CEO of Futureproof. Welcome, Matt.
Alec, thanks for having me.
Dude, this is so awesome to have you on the show. And, normally I start with people's background and stuff like that, but obviously Futureproof is coming right up in Florida. So if you could just give the audience a little info about that and maybe some FOMO.
Yeah, for sure. So Futureproof citywide, March 8th through the 11th in Miami Beach. And when we say Miami Beach, we don't mean, at the Fontainebleau or at the Lowe's. We mean quite literally in South Beach, on the beach in the sand. So what we do is we take a 4.5 block beachfront space right there off Ocean Drive, and we convert it into our little wealth management city. So we have 4,000 wealth management professionals, technologists, financial advisors, all coming. And this year, what I'm most excited about, and the thing that I think is consuming much of my attention, I know yours, is AI and where the industry is going. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of noise. There's also a lot of real practical applications that are being built today. And so we're going to be the annual gathering of that new, what I believe, a new community, which is going to be an AI first, AI native wealth management professional community. And so we're excited to kind of unveil that in a couple of weeks.
That is so awesome. Look, I think Futureproof really is transforming how wealth and asset management professionals connect through large tech-enabled events. It's just honestly, from my perspective, going to the one in Huntington Beach, that's like the best event I've ever been to. And I've been to 1,000 conferences.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. For those who haven't go, yeah, there's still time. You can get to Florida. But let's rewind a little bit and talk more about you and about your background. And it's funny because I know at least a handful of people who are in technology or in the wealth management space that actually went to Johnson & Wales, where you went in Rhode Island,
really?
right? Yeah.
That's
isn't that
so
wild?
funny. That is so
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
And I think maybe it's because of it's the service element, right? Like, if you can run a restaurant, and you're serving your customers super well, like who are the best financial advisors? They're the people that serve their customers, their clients super well.
It's actually a really good point. I mean, much of the innovation, I think, in service actually could be learned in hospitality, right? We're kind of seeing that now, and especially as things become more tech enabled or tech first, like the human element, the service element, the layering on that technology, right? It's where some of the most or the biggest and most important brands across every industry actually lives at. So it's interesting. It's funny about it. Johnson & Wales, it's like, I almost shy away every time I go, oh, I went to school in Providence. They're like, oh, went to school in Providence? And it's like Johnson & Wales is the school that they least mention. And I'm like, no, I went to a culinary school for finance. And so it's funny when you said you've met a few people in our space, please introduce me to them, because I have not met many.
Yeah, there's at least one who's come on the show too. So I'll have to go back and I'll have to use my, as you know, we actually have an AI agent. We originally built it out for Michael Kitces because he was saying, God, I can't remember who's been on my show and which episode. We built it out and pulled all his episodes into one AI agent. So you can just ask like, hey,
Amazing.
which episode was Matt on and what did he say? Or even better for me is if there's like a topic. So remind me the episode about backdoor Roth IRAs and what was the summary, right? Bam, it does it in like 5 seconds. So
It's amazing.
super helpful. So I did that for my podcast too. So, at episode 80 or whatever, you can't remember everything everyone has ever said. So it's Super helpful. So as part of your journey there, who's your mentor or influential figure that got you to where you are today? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a pretty wild background. So like even you said mentioned Johnson and Wales, like I actually went to school for sport management originally. My whole life, I thought I was going to either, you go through that as a young kid. I'm going to be, I'm going to play for a professional team, and then you realize like your genetics aren't going to carry you that far, even if you're good. And so that was my realization come high school. But I really loved just sport in general. And so to me, it was, how do I stay in this? How do I make it a profession? And so the other side of it is I kind of grew up dirt poor. So I was like, all right, how do I make real money? And those two things, are at odds with each other in most sport kind of roles. And so I decided to become a sport agent. I wanted to be, I wanted to kind of stay close to it. I wanted to be in that professional setting, high stakes. I always loved to negotiate. And so I went on that path. I actually went to school, a small school called St. Leo, just outside of Tampa for a bit. And then what I quickly realized is, really good sports agents, at least at that time, you had to be a lawyer. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to law school. I just can't do it. And so I ended up switching. I had left that school and I went to Johnson Wales for a bit, studied entrepreneurship because really I was kind of lost. I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Always interested in finance, and was there. I was like, hey, why don't I do this? And, to that earlier point, I found myself in a, hospitality service management type of network, but studying finance. And so it's a fun pathway to my first job, which was at a company called Informa, global media conglomerate, mostly in the B2B space. And it was events. And I didn't know this industry existed at all. And through that, I just kind of slowly started kind of, learning, entry level. I was always good at talking, always good at, understanding people. And really what I found is my secret was actually building community. And I don't mean it in this very broad sense that we all talk about today. It's looking at in this case, a professional area, and understanding all of the players, all of the stakeholders involved, and then connecting the dots and actually finding the mutual value proposition for them to have a purpose to connect. Just so happens we do it in events. So getting back to your point, that wild, crazy journey actually left me in 2016. We acquired a business at the time that I was a part of the acquisition team. And it led me to this gentleman, Matt Hogan, who's still in our industry today, CIO of Bitwise Asset Management. He's a co-founder of Future Proof, kind of more on the silent side. But he was that person, I would say, where, in a professional setting, I always was, hungry for more, but didn't have really clear direction as to like what my path was. And he kind of sat me down there. He had just, sold the business, had a 2-year commitment to that business. And so he was sitting in the, just counting the clock, right? He then was the first real person on a professional thing. It kind of gave me a little bit more like I'm capable of doing more than I can. And frankly, I'm doing it for a much larger company. And so he gave me both the encouragement and exposed me to a much larger room, and then also kicked me in the ass to push me into that room. And so, when you think about that, I've had many mentors in very different aspects of my life, obviously my parents and all that, but from a professional setting and where I am today, Matt was the catalyst to kind of get me here, and frankly, why Future Proof has been built.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, great credit to him and to you. And by the way, like I didn't really know like what big business events were either. I went to Money 2020 for the first time 2 years ago and just couldn't believe how big it was. They basically take over, the entire Venetian basically in Las Vegas. I mean, I've been to other like tech conferences, which were massive, like Microsoft Ignite and
Yep.
RSA Cybersecurity, but not for the financial world. And then, as that conference, and again, they did more than just that one conference, but the company sold for over $1 billion with a B, right? Like that's the kind of size we're talking about there, which is incredible, and also points to the value of these conferences and human connection. And as AI takes over more and more of social media, getting together with people in person also becomes really important.
Yeah, I think it's funny you brought up Money 2020. So actually my partner and a couple of other businesses I'm in, he was the founder of Money 2020. So he had sold it for the first time. After 2 years, it sold for 150 million. And at that time, it was like the industry, it was like the whoa, it's a big deal, and it happened so fast. And really, then you see 10 years later, it's rolled up and sold to my old company, Informa. So Informa bought Essential, which owned Money 2020, for 1.1 billion pounds, to be clear, right? So it wasn't, just $1 billion. And so that was just two assets, Cannes Lions and Money 2020. So yeah, these businesses, once you like are the leading industry event, and it's like the world stops, the industry shuts down for a couple of days, and that's frankly, we're early days, but that's, Future Proof both has a little bit of a unique flavor to it, but we have that, I believe we have that like signature moment in the industry where either you go to it or you love it or you love to hate it, but you have to know about it and you follow it during the days it operates, right?
Everybody knows about it. It's on CNBC. I mean, come on. Yeah. It's kind of hard to avoid. What's crazy is, statistically, I think there are around 300,000 financial advisors in the US. Now, maybe different levels. Maybe some are junior or really are paras or whatever, but that's a rough number, which is the same as like 20 years ago. Can you imagine getting 300,000 people at a conference?
Well, it's funny. The genesis of Future Proof is, I had this idea for this format, right? Which is, again, if you haven't been, it's entirely outdoor business conference. So we've all been to business conferences. They mostly suck. Like, that's just the secret. Like, they tout these beautiful locations and you travel to it, and then they lock you up in a ballroom for 10 hours, over caffeinate you, give you salted, crappy food, and you leave there never getting that, those days on your life back, and you leave with a bloated face and you have to play catch up, right? And that is the industry, and it's a huge industry. And so my view actually was during COVID, where the entire industry shut down, and I was in there, 10-year veteran, and I was like, shit, these events kind of suck, and I don't know if I want to be in this industry anymore, right? During COVID, you're kind of just questioning a lot of things. And then I was like, well, do I think live events were going to come back? And my view was yes, because of all the reasons. Like, the world is becoming more tech first, social media is there, but it's like real connection in a professional setting is how you build trust, and trust builds stronger relationships and get important deals done. So my view was yes, it was going to come back. The other side to that was like, is it really going to come back the way we've been doing them, which is like lack of innovation, no technology, hire a big coach and have them talk about leadership to 1,000 of people that are, just as, successful as that person. Like, it's kind of silly as we all just go through, we put on these masks and we go through the motions. And so at the time, my view was really like, I think there's a better way to do it. So I actually went and raised a little bit of seed money so events aren't like a venture-backed business usually. So what I raised seed money for event business. The funniest part is I raised it during COVID. There was no event. And I was like, I have an idea. I want to create a wealth management festival. And for anyone in wealth management, like, wealth management and festival are not words that are often put in the same sentence. And so you should have been part of those fundraising calls. They would have been entertaining. I wish I still had them recorded.
That would be incredibly entertaining to watch that, right? Yeah, that's very funny. Look, I think, look, you actually do a lot of stuff, right? Because you're still doing ETF.com too, right?
Yeah, so I acquired that business mid last year. And the plan is to kind of convert that from a traditional digital media business to a media plus events business that feels a little bit more modern, but also is a better operating model in the world of AI.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Yeah, more stuff on Matt's plate for sure. And I think, we obviously emphasized technology, enabling real human connection. How do you approach the ethical implications of AI and tech in your work?
It's interesting because, I spent a lot of time over the last 2 years developing my own view on AI, right? And I think most people, especially in my space, they see a trend and they're like, wow, how do we capitalize and therefore commercialize this trend? And it's, the last decade was like the digitization of different industries. And like, that was the moment, the inflection point that you built a new community. And so I think a lot of companies have come out with AI for this industry events. There's no shortage of that right now. So one, I was like, all right, this is a real opportunity for me. But before I go and just try to kind of try to capture a moment, like, how do I feel about it? And so I spent a lot of time doing research. And then more importantly, what I realized in my industry, with the events industry, right? I realized like, we're not even using technology, right? And so it's like, it's crazy. It's such an analog business. And so the layering in, and we've done this from the start, the layering in of technology to the core and data capture, not just for data's sake, but actually intentionally to create better experience and do all that, is how we built the business. So now you now enter AI, right? And so when you think about the layering in of AI with that, well, you're afforded so much. The question though becomes, where do you go with it? And I think that's like the ethical implications. It's like you're dealing with real people and humans. And the thing that I always, my general view here is I'm pro tech. I've always been pro tech. I'm like the person, and something comes out, I need to buy it and play with it. And, I may dispose of it, or I may just, become part of my daily life. I think with AI, it's a much bigger question than technology. And where I kind of have at least netted out at this point in time is that people need, in both their personal lives and professional lives, they need to experience it. They need to play with it. They might not need to adopt it at every state, but like, I think the worst thing you can do is actually assume it's not going to have any effect on you, your family, your profession. And I think, so for me as a business, like, put on my business hat on, we were very early on, and we've had, like, talk about note takers. We had Fireflies and note takers since I started the business, when it was like very janky and didn't really work well. Like, it was embedded into everything. It was just like, it was very experimental at that time. And so I've infused it into or layered into the business at every stage. As it comes to the applications that we build, like, AI is infused into our breakthrough meetings program. And that's like the biggest value prop of how we connect people. And I would say the highest ROI that, folks like you that come to the event, say out of it. So we have this like very bright, vibrant experience. And like, yeah, that's the aesthetic, but the real value is the people you meet, right? The relationships you develop. That's all based on the data capture and layering AI. And so we found more value than I think risk in that. But it is like, as every really 6-month cycle comes on, it's like, you have to, look in the mirror and assess everything. And, like, I guess ask me this question in 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And where does the word safeguard has popped up a little bit as I've been dealing with the team. Like, where'd that come from? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So Safeguard's another event we run. It's an interesting one, right? So like, my view here is, I'm trying to create new category of events, and that is not specific to wealth management, right? And so we have AI meets retail, and that's Retail Club, and that's actually taking place the week after Future Proof Festival in Huntington Beach, and it's going to kind of use the same infrastructure, but built for the retail community. We have another event brand called Safeguard, which is a smaller retreat, right? About 500 to 600 leaders in the fraud, risk, identity space. So like, at the heart of Safeguard, like, how is AI going to change predominantly financial services today? But our belief is that brand could actually, again, be more of a horizontal play and go into different, like, verticalize different industries. Because the truth is, it's moving so fast. It's not designed anymore for a certain function or a certain role at a company. It needs all stakeholders to understand it, to understand the risks associated with it. And so Safeguard is an event business and brand that we're introducing actually later this year in May. And we are really excited about it, because what I'm finding is, while I'm doing all of these events, which are very separate from a industry and audience standpoint, there's a lot of overlap or connective tissue at the intersection of like AI technology, risk, and what does that mean for the impact of all these very big and large industries.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, congrats. This sounds really, really amazing, and really happy to be able to participate as well. So, let's go back to the theme of the show, right? Which is financial advisors basically figuring out, how to use AI. Obviously, you're using AI in your own business. What are you seeing out there? What are you excited about in terms of AI and the business of giving financial advice?
So I'm most excited about the youthful energy in this moment, and I'll kind of give context to that. I started talking more serious about AI in our space early last year, and at the time, it was one out of every 10 people would be like, "Yeah," and have a view, or it was more negative or just like not worth a discussion. And fast forward to, that same period this year, there was more people wanting to, engage in those discussions. Wide spectrum of views, but again, more engagement. I would say right now, where I sit, I speak to probably, I don't know, like shared like recordings, maybe 30 advisors, wealth management professionals a week, and then probably another 60 or so just communicating through the various platforms a week, all centered around AI and wealth management. And I say that I'm most excited about the youthful energy is because these conversations are far ranging in terms of it usually starts at like applicability in our industry, what's real, what's not, what people have experience, and then it goes into like talking, theory, talking about education, societal impact. And there's no, for the first time in a while, I feel like there is no just like echo chamber of, I heard Alex say, so I'm going to repeat it. Right. The only thing I would say that's probably a hot take, and I say it to everyone, is like, I do believe people are underestimating the impact that it will have on the professional roles in our industry. And we could talk about that a little bit more, but that's the one consistent thing I do get. And I think it's more of people just wanting to get comfortable in a very fast paced environment where it's like, this is a very human centered business. And so humans are always going to be at the core of it. I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot too. Like, I do believe people are underestimating just how fast this is evolving and changing and what could be possible into the future as you have like a generational shift of, expectation, going back to the experience and client service aspect of it. But, we could talk about that if you want, but that's kind of the thing.
And now a word from our sponsor. Artificial Intelligence Risk Inc. accelerates adoption of GenAI safely. They provide the governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity platform that financial, healthcare, and other regulated organizations need before they can use GenAI safely and in compliance with regulatory requirements. Their software has won #1 awards for cybersecurity and compliance from Waters Technology. Find them at aicrisk.com. Yeah, I agree. I think this is the classic, technology is going to change the wealth management business less in the next year than people think, but more in 10 years than people think.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And part of that's also the passing on of generational wealth from the baby boomers to the next generation, right? Where they're going to be more comfortable potentially with technology and more comfortable with various things to do with AI. One of the things that concerns me is actually AI and privacy, right? And what we've seen recently, for example, is OpenAI saying, "Hey, it's great. Just send us all your health stuff, and we'll give you information back." Like, yeah, they're basically creating their own little digital health record for people that want to participate there. It's unclear what they're actually going to end up doing with that, right? Or what if OpenAI goes bankrupt and sells all that data to someone else, and you don't want them having your data? Where's the opt out, right? Like that looks pretty problematic to me. And that's just one little sample of people kind of willingly giving up like very, very private information.
Can I ask you a question about that though? Because
Yeah.
I think this is something that I agree with you on that. And I think there's the kind of two things I see right now, and this is not like our industry, this is more just on consumer side. It's like,
Yeah.
there's a bias towards like trust, which is like very weird because usually it's like you're very skeptical. And for some reason, I think maybe it's the way in which, people communicate with these LLMs or whatever. But I mean, think about it. They're sharing more information even before, OpenAI rolled out the health play. People were sharing all types of health and financial data because I think historically it's a place where like I'm in over my skis. I can't understand this. I can't interpret it. Explain this to me. And, you think about health and finance as these two things where we've created a vocabulary to make it more complex than it otherwise needs to be. And it's fascinating to me because we have these discussions in our industry a lot about trust as a huge hurdle we have to climb for any AI adoption in our space. And then I see like the consumer side of it, which are also these professionals that are putting it in the net in these platforms. But yet they're like, oh no, this is why we can't do it. But it's like your human behavior is actually at odds with what you should be doing. So like my question to you is, do you see that as like, is the health play that just came out a bigger risk, a more heightened risk than what's already happening? Or is it just the same? It's just compound. They're like marketing it more now.
Yeah, I feel like off the cuff, they're just marketing it more now. But what I've seen is it's still a little bit generational now, right? Like I'm not uploading my lab report to ChatGPT, right? But if you're under 30, you're like, oh, my stuff's out there anyway. Like, I'm sure all my information's on the dark web. So what the hell, right? I'm going to upload something.
But I think you're also, I don't know if it's generational because you're also an expert in this space. So you're very aware of the risks. Like that's you. I know people of like my grandmother, for instance, like she'll go and say, I just had this, like she had just had a back operation and she'll go in and, hey, I got this, feedback, like it's a form and it's, it's written in doctor speak. And so she's like, hey, what does this actually mean?
Please translate this for me, right? Yeah.
So I think on one side, it's like blindness, youthful blindness, right? For the 30-year-old, like, whatever, and then I think it's like older ignorance. I think we're actually seeing that on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think what's interesting is, the regulators are finally getting involved. And I was speaking with someone earlier today that is a, big time RIA consultant, right? So they don't work for an RIA, but they have lots of clients. And this is a very large consulting company that focuses on wealth management. I won't say their name. And they were saying, oh my God, the SEC is basically just revised all their privacy rules. And, if you're an advisor and you put PII in ChatGPT, like now you're officially in trouble, right? Like they've actually said it, right? Before you kind of sort of knew it and now you know for sure.
Yeah.
But the problem that he was dealing with was they have a larger client and some of their financial advisors are actually 1099 employees. So they're contractors. But the RIA is now officially responsible if that contractor puts PII into any of the public AI systems as a data breach. I mean, literally, this just came out of the SEC. So my opinion about that now is that all of those RIAs, and some of them are obviously the large aggregators, we all know they are going to need to actually provide those independent advisors an AI platform to use that's secure.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't, you're just asking for trouble. And in fact, because now you need to monitor that, you're actually going to have them all basically use remote into a computer using a laptop and use the computer basically on the cloud so they can know everything that you're doing. Like that is coming, I think, after this most recent note from the SEC.
That's amazing. I haven't heard that yet.
Literally just happened this week. So this is pretty new stuff. I got to go do some analysis over the weekend.
Nice weekend reading.
Yeah, exactly. I can get our AI to summarize it for me, but I'm actually going to read the whole thing too. For those who are listening, this is a problem that we solve at AIR. So
yeah, exactly.
Feel free to give me a call. We've been talking about, risk and compliance for AI for 3 years. And I feel like, a lot of times like nobody was listening. And I've actually been talking to literally all of the regulators, including in the European countries for that length of time too. And I think, look, sometimes it takes them a while to figure it out. But when they do, they're very serious about it. It's not
Yeah.
like there's no more get out of jail free card at this point. If you're an advisor and you put client information in the public version of ChatGPT, you're going to have a problem with the regulator. Like that's basically what they're saying right now.
So do you anticipate this to, on one side, I could look at this like, all right, everyone is now going to have, all these enterprise level, highly secure, AI solutions embedded into their firm. And therefore it's like a boom for the AI industry. Or do you actually look at this as like, no, this is actually going to hit the pause button for many firms, and we're going to see a slower, cycle of piloting and people adopting it, especially people like enterprise accounts that have higher risks associated with it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my observation, across financial services is I've never seen such a diversity of adoption, right? I was talking to a mid-sized bank in New Jersey that is way ahead on AI, right? And we're working with them potentially to build out some, really cool agentic workflow type stuff, right? So even the most advanced banks in this space still need help, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just the technology is changing so fast. You need specialists. You need people who are doing it all day, every day, 7 days a week to kind of keep up. And then you got banks that are like, yeah, I think next quarter, Matt, maybe we're going to do our first co-pilot trial for 10 people, right? My point is just miles apart from each other, right? Like the last time I saw this was probably the internet, right? And my running joke about AI for a while was, AI is a fad, just like the internet in 2000. Right? Like, so obviously not fads, but it's wild. And the same is true in the wealth management space where you've got early adopters and not. And what I'd say is you've got kind of a sweet spot of the mid-sized firms that have enough capital to be able to invest in enterprise AI systems and customize them and get real value out of it for the advisors. They, I think, are going to do super well. The really large aggregators are kind of stuck in compliance land. They're like, you can use Copilot, right? And the advisors are like, this does not help, right? So that's those are the ones I think with the larger problems. And sometimes they're trying to build stuff themselves, and then by the time they finish building it, it's obsolete. That whole thing.
Yeah.
The smaller ones are running around, obviously using the SaaS month-to-month products. That's fine. But at least today, they can't get to where they need to get in terms of like, they're never going to have an agentic workflow system or anything like that. And by the way, going back to the whole SEC thing, like most of the public tools out for that out there. So let's say there's Zapier, for example, right? Is it's kind of a workflow system, right? Yep. The problem is it's SaaS. And the problem is as soon as you send your client data somehow into Zapier, it'd be the same as putting into the public version of ChatGPT, not allowed by the SEC, right? So it's not like, oh, don't worry, I'll just use some SaaS tool and I'll do this stuff. No, you can't, right?
Wow.
Like the SEC basically just prohibited that. So the smaller guys are going to fall behind of necessity or get sanctioned if they do bad things and get caught. So I think this is going to drive more consolidation, right? That totally makes sense to me, but not necessarily into the largest firms, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more the medium-sized firms getting bigger as opposed to the giant guys. So it'll be interesting to watch.
It's funny you said that actually, because I was just speaking with a gentleman who's private equity and wealth management, and I would say profile of investments are 500 million to 3 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had a very similar view, which is, I asked him the question, like, who do you think wins out here? Is the big firms with, large data sets and resources, but like can't get out of their own way in terms of compliance? Or is it the smaller, nimble, could like build something and implement it at, at a net quote unquote enterprise level, in a week? And he was like, I actually think it's the person in the middle who is in a position to move quicker than the big, right? Has a bit more resource and could gobble up the people who really can't compete in this space. And you create a series of not like new wirehouses in an REA model, but actually like national firms that are growing rapidly and are built kind of more AI native. And it hit me. It's like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for that future.
Yeah. It's interesting because, thinking about, my company, it's kind of an odd company in that, yeah, we're a software company, right? But also our goal is really to partner for multiple years with financial companies and really help them think strategically about AI, right? We don't just drop in a meeting note taker and go, hey, have a great year, right? Well, we talk about like, well, what are your strategic initiatives? Like, what are you trying to do with the business? Are you trying to get new, younger clients? Or are you trying to get more of a wallet share from the existing ones? Are you trying to get referrals? What are you trying to do here, right? Are you trying to improve investment performance? And then aligning AI strategically with what they're trying to do, right? Like everybody's like, boom, light bulb, right? Oh, that's the right way to use AI, of course, right? But that's not how most companies approach it. They're like, oh, the advisors want a note taker, right? Well, that's nice, but how does that, and efficiency and improving efficiency may be one of your goals, but it's probably not your only strategic goal.
Yeah. I mean, look, the genesis, we talked about this, the genesis of Future Proof Citywide. It's like, I just felt much of the conversation was centered around like pure tech discussion, point solutions. And it's like, look, not discounting the benefits of that, but for us to really, truly realize its potential, it's all of the other things. So like your offering sounds like perfect to me because it is tech plus service and a long-term alignment. And these are iterative processes. This isn't, I take it off the shelf and deploy it, and look, we're AI, native, and everything works perfectly. And I think that's the struggle that people have. And you mentioned it early, which is the build versus buy. And I think a lot of people are like, look, this gives me the freedom to build now, and now we own this. And that's not a smart decision. Even if it's more capable to support you in that, it's still not a smart decision for how fast things are moving, how regulation is changing, right? Like there's all these elements where it's like, you're better off to partner with, folks like you guys who are experts in this space or living, like you're going to spend your weekend, reading that. It's like, I'd rather partner with you and have you be on my side versus, me sitting there in a room and having to explain something that like my team did and, great intention, poor execution. Right. And so I think we're at this, inflection point, which is there seems to be so many different ways to kind of go about this. But I think we are hopefully with regulation, some other things, we're going to start to hone in on like the standard practices. And maybe there's, 10 different ways to do this, but like people choose a path versus it's this like, art piece. And I take this and interpret it any which way. And I feel different about it today than I did yesterday. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, shifting to kind of advice for our listeners. Look, I think one of the things that I think we're going to see over the next few years is it's just going to be tougher for kids coming out of school to get those entry level roles, right? Like the big consulting companies, like, hey, we're using AI for that now, right? Yeah. And that, so far, it's mostly anecdotal evidence. There's some hard evidence, but mostly anecdotal. But I think it's going to become more obvious over the next few years. So for a student who's really interested in becoming, joining a wealth management firm or becoming a financial advisor, thinking about everything we've said here, what's your advice there? What's a good path for that individual?
I would say lean in to be the expert in AI. And like, look, there's three things that we always say in our industry as like significant catalyst to change our industry. One, you brought up one, the great wealth transfer. We've been talking about this since I got in the industry 10 years ago. It's like, what are we going to flip a switch and the transfer occurred, right? It's gradual. It's going to happen. It's happening now, right? So that's one thing. It's a big shift. right? So it needs attention. The second thing that I've always heard is 1 in 5 practicing financial advisors today are set to retire in the next decade, right? And that's a big, what are we going to do, right? People need financial advice. Very big issue, right? In isolation. The third is we have an on-ramp issue, right? We don't have enough professionals, even before AI, we don't have enough professionals coming to the space that want to serve. And so with the compounding effect of the great wealth transfer and retirees, what does that mean for our industry and what does that happen? I actually look at it and it's like, well, now we just threw a dart and we landed in the bullseye, which is AI, because AI to me helps solve all of that, right? Great wealth transfer, it goes, if it does shift to a spouse or to the next generation, they're likely going to need a different type of service model than the person who you currently serve or has served, right? And so I think AI is a better way to think about servicing those different types of cohorts. The second piece, which is 1 in 5 retirees, well, guess what? AI just solved that, because if AI now replaces certain roles, responsibilities, tasks that humans do now, well, maybe it just nets out. And yeah, we might have less professionals in this space, but it actually just evens out with the potential risk of those people retiring. And so the third thing, which is the question you asked and posed, which is, what advice would you give young professionals entering this space? Learn everything you possibly can about AI so that you could be the AI expert coming into a firm that frankly is still behind technology, right? And I think this is the moment where you don't have to do 10 years of being a power planner and learning the industry, right? This is how we treat clients, because guess what? We just said the client's changing. The operating model's shifting, right? Those old folks that, had to have that annual or monthly meeting or quarterly meeting in person, shake the hand and that's changing. And so what happens? You're actually in a beautiful position to be a leader in this industry at a very young age if you do it well. And the way you could do it well is excel at things that people don't have experience on, which is AI. And that is my true belief. I think there will be less job titles than we deem today important for wealth management in 3-4 years' time. I do not think there will actually be less younger professionals in our industry. I actually think that is not a real risk. I just think it's a shift to how we think about it today.
Yeah, makes sense. So the punchline is that Josh Brown is going to want to hire my summer interns, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, let me kind of plant another thing. Josh Brown, we brought him up, and I bring this up a lot because Josh is a polarizing figure in our industry, right? Big personality. You see him on CNBC all the time, right? If you know him, you love him. He's just like, he's a genuine guy. I would imagine most people that are clients of Ritholtz Wealth Management, which is Josh's firm, right, found them through the Josh brand, right? And love what he says, maybe the way he talks, how he thinks, whatever. Do you actually get access to Josh Brown daily? No. Quarterly? No. Maybe if like you're, one of the bigger clients. But now if you could actually infuse AI, where now I could feel like I have Josh in my pocket answering, my questions, that someone is managing at the firm, right? Which is now a proactive service model. Who's managing that? It's not going to be someone who's sitting in the, chair right now saying, I'm, going and traveling, shaking everyone's hand, and AI is not important to us. It's going to be the younger generation who has come up in AI, who knows it natively, who now could be the manager of that type of experience. And think about the different various like agents across the entire wealth management, firm that could be either, assisted or automated through that. And I think it's those younger, kids that are ripe to take those positions versus having to train someone who's been doing it for 30 years differently.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, great advice. We're going to shift into our lightning round where I'm going to mention something, and Matt, you're going to tell me whether you think it's underrated or overrated, and maybe a sentence why. And we're going to start it off with a ringer, which is getting the chicken parm at Artero's in Westboro. Underrated or overrated?
Oh, so underrated. The best chicken parm in Massachusetts. I'm from New York. I might even say it, the best chicken parm in the tri-state.
Wow, that is impressive. I haven't been in it a long time, but I think I'm going to have to go back now. Uh, outdoor rock climbing as a hobby.
I'm gonna go overrated. I'm kind of a little fearful of heights, so I like the adventure. That's pushing a little too far.
All right. AI powered networking, which you kind of talked about before. So underrated or overrated?
I think it's underrated. I mean, we do it. We've done it for 3 years now, and it just works. And so, like, lean in.
Financial literacy education, underrated or overrated?
So underrated. I mean, we could probably have another podcast on why. It's just one of those things. I mean, I just sat there with my 10-year-old son yesterday, and I'm, looking at his homework, and I'm just like scratching my head and like, why are they spending time on this? But yet they're not teaching the most basic, financial concepts. It's just so crazy to me.
Yeah, totally agree. Coaching youth football, underrated.
Underrated. It is therapy. It is therapy. I spend too much time at work having conversations that are high stress, make too many decisions. I would say when I started coaching, so my son's 10, I started coaching him pretty much ever since he started playing sports. And at the time I had just started the business, and my wife said, don't commit. You're not going to be able to commit. Your schedule is crazy. And that's all I needed as a catalyst to say, like, no, I'm going to do it. And ever since, it is my therapy. It's a point where I don't care what goes on during the day, who I'm interacting with, my phone goes away, and I'm talking to, 10 to 12, 10-year-old boys. And if you think work is hard, try to do that. But for you and for the soul, so underrated.
That's awesome. Yeah, I coached Little League. It was a lot of fun. Of course, there's the obligatory one crazy parent, but other than that,
I would say they're all crazy parents now. Youth sports is you see people's true colors when it comes to youth sports, unfortunately. And I've seen some stuff where you want to acknowledge it, but you have to call it out. It is, it's crazy.
Yeah. Social media for professional community building, underrated or overrated?
I'm going to go overrated. And my reason is I think people are using it wrong. I think people are using it as a take instrument and not a give instrument. And I think that is making, at least for me, less desirable to be on it.
Skiing in Western Mass, like Butternut, for example, underrated or overrated?
I'm going to have to go overrated. I actually am living right now with a torn ACL, so I personally go on a mountain. So personally, overrated.
All right. Springfield's museums, like the Basketball Hall of Fame, underrated or overrated?
I hate to say it, I'm a huge Knicks fan, huge NBA fan. It's overrated.
Yeah.
It's overrated. It's not that exciting.
But you have to drive by it. So
you have to do it. You have to do it, but doing it once is more than enough.
How about the Lexington and Concord reenactment of this shot heard around the world every year, underrated or overrated?
I'll go underrated. I like a little bit of history.
That's fun. I think everybody gets dressed up. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And last but not least, the Russell Crowe movie, Gladiator, underrated or overrated?
So underrated. Best movie in the history of cinema.
Wow. Okay, so everybody's got to drop everything and watch that movie this weekend.
For what it's worth, I am not drinking. I am having water.
Only drinking water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Matt, this has been such a great show. Thanks for coming on the show. This has been Matt Middleton, founder and CEO of Future Proof, and so many other things as we've learned. Thank you, Matt.
Alec, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
So Matt, let's just make sure people can find you where you are. Obviously, you're on LinkedIn. Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best. Matt Middleton. Instagram, I'm actually more frequent, going to the point I said earlier. Matt Middleton ____. Unfortunately, I was late to that game, so that's my thing. But yeah, find me, DM me. I'm always available.
Awesome. And then the Future Proof website?
futureproofhq.com, and you'll see Futureproof Citywide. You see our Futureproof Festival, which is our bigger event taking place in Huntington Beach this fall.
Awesome. Well, I will see you there, Matt. Thanks for coming on the show.
Cool. Thanks again.
You are listening to the AI Risk Reward Podcast with your host, Alec Crawford. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, for example, Apple Podcasts. Production and sound engineering by Troutman Street Audio. You can find them on LinkedIn. Please like, subscribe, and comment.